Okay, so A was expanding. Girls, we ready?
Yeah.
A was expanding. In B, we did 3 types of factorizing. We did common factor, difference of 2 squares, and factorizing in pairs. And so now comes the time where we want to start looking at the quadratics and factorizing the quadratics. So a quadratic is something that has 3 terms. It says that here, has 3 terms. And in general, it looks like the following. You'll have a number in front of an x squared, a number in front of an x, and then a number at the end. So the A, B, and C are just numbers. And they will change from question to question. The only special condition of a quadratic is that your A cannot be equal to 0, because if A was 0, that would mean that there was no x squared, and the x squared is what makes this a quadratic. A monic quadratic trinomial is the one we're focusing on today, and that is when A is equal to 1. So it means that there'll be just a 1x squared or just an x squared, which makes them a little bit easier to factorize. So it says, consider the monic trinomial x squared plus bx plus c, because we've gotten rid of that number in front of the x squared. We want to find the factors of c. In other words, we're looking for 2 numbers that times to give the number on the end, which is c. Then looking at all the factors that we have, we need to see which ones add to give the b, the number in front of the x. Okay, and that is the number that you need to put into your brackets. So there's a summary there, this last bit here. It says another way of stating this is to factorize x squared plus bx plus c. You find 2 numbers that multiply to give c and add to give the b. Okay, that's probably what you remember. So, how much of this do you guys remember?
None of it.
None of it? Should I go right back and do it really slowly from the beginning? Okay, so we'll start slowly, and then hopefully you'll find that you'll be able to get faster and faster, and we'll have to write less down. So if I was doing this from scratch, assuming that you'd never done this before, if we were looking at a quadratic like this, a squared plus 6a plus 8, the first thing you look at is the number on the end, the 8. And think back to year 7. You want to think of all your times tables that times to give 8. So you would have 1 and 8. You would have 2 and 4. Is there any others? No. Okay, so they're my factor pairs. Now, of those pairs, I need to work out which ones are going to add to give that number, the 6.
2 and 4.
So 1 and 8 makes 9, so that doesn't work, so I can cross that one out. But 2 and 4 does add to give us 6. So what we do is we write 2 brackets down. There is going to be, whatever your pronumeral is, in this case it's an A, and A is going to be at the start of both brackets, and the 2 numbers that we worked out, the 2 and the 4, they're going to be the numbers that go at the end, so a positive 2 and a positive 4. Now it sounds simple enough when everything's positive. It gets a little bit more tricky when you start putting more minus signs in there. So for example, let's look at B. First of all, I'm looking at this 5. I need to find numbers that multiply to give 5. There is only one option, 1 and 5. They're the only things that times to give 5. However, in this question, when you look at your middle number, it is a negative 6. If that number is negative, it means that some of your starting numbers must have been negative. For this number to be negative and that number to be positive, it actually means that both of them have to be negative, because only 2 negatives could times to give a positive here, but still give me negative numbers when I add them together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know I need 2 negative numbers, so let's give it a try. Let's put minus signs in front of both of those numbers. Is minus 1 times minus 5, 5?
Yeah.
Yes. Is minus 1 plus a minus 5 minus 6?
Yeah.
Yes. So those numbers work. Okay, so we write our brackets down. 2 big brackets. It's going to be A at the beginning of both brackets. And the two numbers I found, I have -1 and -5. It doesn't actually matter which order you put them in. It means the same thing. Okay, let's keep practicing. Part C. We have got a -8 here. What does that tell us about the two numbers that we're looking for? Excellent. If the last number is negative, the only way that I can have two numbers to give me a negative number, one has to be positive, one has to be negative. Let's think even deeper. This number here is also negative. So when I add them together, of my two numbers, which one's bigger, the positive one or the negative one? The negative number needs to be bigger when I add them to get a negative result. Okay, so let's have a think. 8. The things that times to give 8 are 1 and 8, 2 and 4. We know that the bigger number has to be negative, so we want -8 and -4. They are my two choices. Both of them, when I times them, times to give a -8. Now, let's see which one adds to give a -2. That one makes -7. Nope. This one makes -2. Okay, so cross out the first one, it doesn't work. I need 2 and -4. So 2 brackets, this time we're using X. And one bracket will have a +2 and the other bracket will have a -4. Okay, what you'll find, I hope, is that you will not need to write these parts down pretty quickly. This is the kind of things you're checking in your head. Okay? Do you guys feel like you need to write them?
Yeah.
You do. Okay, that's okay. If you still do, that's fine. Let's keep going. D. This is trying to be sneaky because I have y squared -4 plus 3y. It's in the wrong order. That's the sneaky part here. It should always be the squared, so y squared, then y, then number. Okay, so let's rewrite it. It needs to be y squared plus 3y minus 4. Okay, they've got to be in the right order. So I'm looking for two numbers that times to give a -4. So it's negative. One of them needs to be negative if that's negative. Okay, if I add them though, I get a positive this time. What does that tell you about which one's the negative one? The smaller one has to be negative this time. Good. So what things times to give a 4?
1 and 4.
It could be a 1 and a 4, and it could be a 2 and a 2. We said it's the smaller one that will have to be negative. Well, that's a bit tricky for 2 and 2. Let's just put it on the first one. So, -2 plus 2, that's going to make 0. That's obviously not going to work. But -1 plus 4 does make a +3. They're the ones that work. So you can circle it or whatever it needs to make, they're the right answers. So let's put that in our brackets.
I think -1 and -3.
That makes -1.
Oh, +4.
Yeah. So we need a y minus 1 and we need a y plus 4. So we want you to get really, really fast at that, okay? That is a very, very important skill, being able to factorize a trinomial like that pretty fast. Because from there, on the next page, we want to start adding a few extra complications. This first one, it looks like all of a sudden, even though I promised you we're only doing Monic ones today, all of a sudden there's a 2 in front of that x squared. That's the extra complication. If you are lucky enough, which you are for this question, to get rid of that 2 out the front, we can just factorize it out of every term. This time. When we do the ones next lesson or next exercise, we're not able to do that, which is why we need a new technique to do them. That's why I said, if we're lucky, we can factorize that 2 out. So let's go 2, bracket. That will leave me with x squared minus x and minus 6. Okay, so now that part in the bracket, that is my Monic trinomial. So now I am looking for, just at this quadratic, I'm looking for two numbers that times to give the minus 6, and they're going to add to give a minus 1, because no number there would be a 1. Okay, minus, this is minus, which means one of the numbers is negative. This is minus, which means the bigger number is negative. So what things times to give 6?
-3 and positive.
That times to give 9.
I mean -3 and -3.
That times is to give 9.
2 and 3.
2 and 3. So it could be 1 and 6. 1 times 6 makes 6, and 2 times 3 makes 6. They're my only options. And I know that the bigger one has to be negative. So it could be -6 or it could be -3. So of those options, which one gives a -1? This one. 2 minus 3. That makes -1. So that's the one that I need to use. Leave the 2 sitting out the front. Then it's going to go to 2 brackets instead of the 1. X will be at the start of both brackets, and we'll have a +2 and a -3. Okay, that's one type of extra thing I could get you to do. Question 3. It says to factorize. It could also say there simplify. If you are asked to simplify any type of fraction that involves quadratics or anything else even, you should always factorize first and then see what you can cancel off. So on the top of that fraction is a quadratic. I can factorize that into 2 brackets. I am looking for 2 numbers at times to give the -20 and add to give a 1. Do I need to keep writing them down? Yes? All right. So -20 means one of them is negative, and that being positive means the bigger one is positive. So what things times to give 20? Start with 1 and 20. Then 2 and 10. 3 doesn't work. 4 and 5. They're my options. The bigger one I said had to be positive, so let's make all the smaller ones negative. That one, and that one. So which one of those 3 options is going to make a +1 when I add them? That one, that's right. So we're going to have x minus 4 and x plus 5. On the bottom, I still have, I can't do anything with it yet, I have that x minus 4. But you could put that in brackets because it is actually the same as that x minus 4, as something in common on the top and the bottom. I can cancel them off. You can only do it when everything's multiplied together though, can't you, when you're cancelling things. So it cancels off and all that's left is the x plus 5. Always, 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 always factorize first. With that in mind, question 4. So we want to factorize and hopefully simplify that expression. There is just quite a few things in there that I need to factorize. So one at a time. Starting with this top quadratic, trinomial. 3 terms. So it's going to have 2 brackets. I'm looking for 2 numbers that times to give -10 and add to give a 3. Can we do it without writing them down? No, still can't do it without writing them down? Okay.
2 and 5.
2 and 5. Excellent. Which one's positive?
The 5.
And the -2.
So is the smaller number always?
Depends on that one. Because this number's positive, I mean the bigger number had to be positive.
Okay.
Yeah. But for the people who can't do it in your head yet, that's okay. 10, being that this is a 10, it's going to be either 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. They're the only things that times to give 10. Because it's a -10, I know one of them has to be negative. And because this number here is positive, the bigger number has to be positive. So I'm going to keep the 10 positive and the 5 positive. That's how I'd go. And I need to know which one makes a 3. So the -2 and the +5, that makes a +3. So that option there. So in our bracket, x minus 2 and x plus 5. That was only the top of the very first fraction. Let's look at the bottom. That is actually a quadratic. You've got the x squared and the -4, but it's a difference of 2 squares. It's one of the ones we learnt yesterday. 2 terms kind of gives it away, and the minus in between, difference, subtract, right? So these always factorize to 2 brackets. You square root the x squared to get x and x. You square root the 4 and you get 2 and 2. One's a plus and one's a minus. Okay, that's the first fraction. Moving on to the second one. we have now got another trinomial, 3 terms. We're looking for 2 numbers that times to give that -2. Oh, that's pretty straight. There's only one option here. It's 1 times 2 makes 2. But it's negative, which means I need a negative sign somewhere. And that sign is also negative, which means which one's the negative one? The 2, the bigger one. So I need an x plus 1 and an x minus 2. Okay, on the bottom, it's not a quadratic, there's no squared there, but there is a common factor of 2 that I could take out of both of those terms. So bringing the 2 out, I would get x plus 5. If everything is factorized, you can cancel common things anywhere from the top with anywhere on the bottom. So the x minus 2, I could cancel with that x minus 2. That x plus 5 could cancel that x plus 5. X plus 2, no, that can't cancel. That's all I can cancel. So once I've cancelled everything I can cancel, we write down what's left. On the top, I've got an x plus 1 and an x minus 2. Don't expand it out again, keep it factorized. On the bottom, I have got a 2. Don't forget about this 2 hiding over here. Put numbers in front of brackets. So 2 bracket x plus 2. That's it. All right, so 8C is what we need to do.
I got it really, yeah.